So we have a new flip-based archetype that is meta-relevant, so you're going to want to check this out. Hey everyone, this is Max and MaxiTCG. Thanks for joining me in another video. So in this video, we're going over a new set of cards that came out in INFO, so they're currently legal in the TCG. It's a TCG exclusive, and it's going to be Mimighoul. So really interesting cards. We have seen these used at the national championships in North America and Europe, so we actually do have some theory now because I'm getting to this a little bit late, just due to a lot of things happening right now. A little bit behind on news. So we have Enter the Mimighoul Dungeon INFO. Alright, so the first card we have here is Mimighoul Master. Earth level 4 zombie effect monster, attack 1800, defense 1200. Cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect while your opponent controls any face down monsters, or you control a Mimighoul monster other than Mimighoul Master. You can only use each of the following effects of Mimighoul Master once per turn. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Mimighoul monster from your deck to your hand except Mimighoul Master. During your opponent's main phase quick effect, you can change one face down monster on the field to face up, attack position, or defense position. Hey everyone, this is Editing Max. If you're enjoying the content, hit that thumbs up button, give the video a like, and leave a comment if you have any discussions you want to start, and consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more of this type of content. Everyone, thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoy, and we'll get back into it. So for a kind of starting card here, archetypes are going to usually follow certain formulas. We have a Searcher, which is really good on normal or special, so that's great. It also has protection, so it can't just be ran over by battle or destroyed by card effect if they have any face down monsters, which is kind of the goal of your deck, as well as if you control a Mimighoul monster, so nice protection built in. And it also has a quick effect on the opponent's turn to change face down monsters on the field to face up attack position. And we'll get into this more as we get into the cards, since this isn't like a super new thing. The way these cards work is you can actually set your monsters to your opponent's field face down, which is really powerful. So it does a lot of really interesting interactions. So this is a really great card, really good starter. Zombie monster, so you can potentially use some zombie support there, which I think is interesting with this. But I think the deck uses a lot of different types, so it's not just like a zombie type deck. So really good card, really good start. The fact that you can trigger your flip effects whenever you want on your opponent's turn is great, as long as you're in the main phase. And that could be a potential downside to this, is that if your opponent is able to maybe imperm this in the draw phase or standby phase, you won't be able to get that quick effect, but they still have the risk of flipping your the monster you gave them face up and triggering their effects. So next we have Mimighoul Dragon, Earth level 1 dragon, flip effect, attack 500, defense 2000. Flip. If it is in the main phase, apply these effects in sequence. Destroy all face-up monsters you control except Mimighoul monsters. Give control of this card to your opponent. During your main phase, you can special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field in face down defense position. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Mimighoul spell or trap from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Mimighoul Dragon once per turn. So this is a really cool and interesting card. So one, it destroys all face-up monsters you control except Mimighouls. So when you give this to your opponent and it gets flipped up, it board wipes their field. Kind of similar to the idea with the Ashen archetype and their dragon monster. You can kind of give it to them when it leaves the field, it board wipes them. Kind of similar idea, but a different premise with the flip effect first removal. So, the master can flip this up, board wiping your opponent, and then you get control of this back, also then protecting your Mimighoul master, which is pretty cool. This is also a spell trap searcher for Mimighoul. I believe they have a pretty good search target. I only know their cards a little bit from what I've seen the interactions for this, so maybe you could even use this as a starter. We can come back to that once we look more at the other spells and traps and see what they do, but this could potentially get you another card and still set up plays. But again, if you are normal summoning this, you're probably not breaking out the master. So I have to kind of see what those are. Maybe this could be a starter. At the very least, it's a really solid interaction for being able to pretty much board wipe your opponent whenever you want with master. So next we have Mimighoul Cerberus, Earth level 1 beast, flip effect, attack 400, defense 1800. Flip. If it is the main phase, apply these effects in sequence. Banish the top 3 cards of your deck, then special summon one of your banished monsters to your opponent's field in defense position. During your main phase, you can special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field in face down defense position. You can only use each effect of Mimighoul Cerberus once per turn. Your opponent cannot target face-up spells you control with card effects. So this one's not as good as the last one. You get the banished top 3 of your opponent's deck, so it would be their monster when flipping up, unless it's yours. And then you can special summon one of those monsters that they banished to your field, giving you potential link resources or other cards there, which is pretty okay. You get control of this. Again, pretty big defense, so Same as Dragon, when you flip it up with Master to face up defense position, it'll come to your field in that position, and then you'll be able to kind of have a little bit of protection for your Master to kind of keep your plays going. So it definitely seems okay. I don't think this one's nearly as good because it doesn't interrupt your opponent in the best way. Maybe if you were to combine this with Runics or some type of deck out deck, maybe this could potentially do more damage to your opponent in that way. I don't think we've seen that, and I'm not sure if that's really even a very good idea, but maybe some potential in that regard. So overall, this one's okay. I don't know if it's that amazing. Banishing the top 3 of your deck, you could hit something with all the 1-ups people hit, potentially get a monster for link climbing. I think the biggest part of this is probably more the link climbing than the messing up your opponent's deck, because you can potentially steal one of their monsters and make plays and, you know, kind of work that way off of it. So that'd be kind of the way I would think of this. It feels maybe more offensive to try to get your opponent's cards to kind of link climb and maybe work that way, would be kind of my impression of the Cerberus one. Next we have Mimighoul Archfiend. Earth level 1, Fiend flip effect. Attack 0, defense 1900. Flip. If it is the main phase, apply these effects in sequence. Your opponent draws 1 card. Send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard. Give control of this card to your opponent. During your main phase, you can special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field in face down defense position. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can change 1 face down monster on the field to face up attack or defense position. You can use this effect of Mimighoul Archfiend once per turn. So this card actually seems okay. You know, the fact you get to, your opponent draws a card, so if you give this to your opponent, you're their opponent when it's flipped. So you would draw a card, they would send a card from hand to grave. Now, if it's like a deck like Tier Limits, that could really hurt you because they could benefit. But if it's a deck where they're just losing resources, like potential hand traps or other cards that they might need to play, you know, that could be good. That creates like a, you know, a 2+ advantage because you're gaining a card, your opponent's losing a card. For this card, which is pretty good, and then you get control of it back. Again, 1900 defense, protects Master, which is helpful. You also get another way to trigger face down monsters. So you could potentially, like going second, give your opponent the dragon, summon this, flip dragon up. So potential ways to kind of work with this outside of Master, because Master only works on your opponent's turn, so this could work on your turn if you're going second, trying to trigger your cards. Now into a board, I don't know if that'd really work because they could probably just negate it and stop it, but it is cool that we are getting another way to use this, plus ways to gain advantage. Deck definitely seems to be like a slower kind of grindy deck, so I think this kind of fits that example well, but I don't know if the deck does enough yet outside of the board wipe. But I think with other engines that we've seen, we could discuss at the end, and I think there's definitely some potential for this. So I think this one is probably a little better than Cerberus, in my opinion. Depending on what you're trying to do. And I like that it triggers the face down monsters as well. So another way to kind of get those monsters face up when you give them to your opponent. So next we have Mimighoul Dungeon Field Spell. Mimighoul monsters you control that were not normal or special summoned this turn gain attack equal to their original defense. Any player who controls a face down monster cannot normal summon monsters, nor declare an attack with monsters that were special summoned this turn. During your main phase, you can add 1 Mimighoul monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. You can only use the effect of Mimighoul Dungeon once per turn. So this is actually a really good card. We're kind of seeing a little bit of a floodgatey effect plus a search effect in here. So you get the option that Mimighoul monsters that were not normal special in this turn gain attack equal to their own defense. So when you're getting your cards back, that should allow them to increase. Also, when you like play Master, Master is going to increase with this card on the field during the next turn, since it was summoned the previous turn. So that's really good. You know, a player who controls a face down monster cannot normal summon monsters, so if you have a deck that needs a normal summon to get going, just by having this on the field with a normal summon on it, they're not going to be able to get their play started, which is pretty good. And then also when this is activated, you can add a Mimighoul monster from your deck or grave to hand. So you can even recycle resources that are in the grave to potentially play a smaller Mimighoul package, so this seems really good. The other thing that I like about this though is the attack increase. We talked about being a grindier deck. I think this does help with that. It's still slower. I don't think the deck one-shots, but being able to increase your attack and defense is pretty solid. And when we look at the other monsters that we have here, Archfiend goes up to 1900. Then we have Cerberus, which goes up to 2200. And then Dragon goes up to 2500. And the Master actually goes up to 3000. So pretty strong overall for what it does in terms of giving you bigger monsters. So it definitely seems like a really key card in the deck. Next we have Mimighoul Maker. Normal spell card. Reveal 2 flip monsters with different names from your deck. Your opponent randomly picks one for you to special summon to their field and face down position, and add the other to your hand. Then you can special summon one Mimighoul monster from your hand. If your opponent special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one face down monster your opponent controls, change it to face up, attack, or defense position. You can only use one Mimighoul Maker effect per turn and only once that turn. So this seems really good. The fact that you could just reveal 2 flip effects with different names from your deck, your opponent randomly picks one for you to special summon to their field into face down defense position, and you add the other to your hand. And then you get the option to special summon, because then you can special summon one Mimighoul from your hand. I don't believe you'd have to do that if you don't have one, so I don't even think you need to have one in hand to activate that. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that should be correct. And then you also get the option if your opponent special summons a monster, you can banish this card from your grave, target one of the face down monsters your opponent controls, and change it to face up attack position or defense. So this kind of seems interesting with the Mimighoul dungeon, because if they have a face down monster they can't normal summon, and if they try to commit by special summoning, you can maybe trigger your dragon, to be able to wipe their board if that's like the way they're going to get playing. But then you do give them the option to normal summon if that was the only face down defense position monster they control. If you give them 2, then you can potentially play around and get rid of the special summoned ability to kind of make plays, and they still can't normal summon. So I think that seems really good. So I really like the way this is kind of working together. It seems really strong so far. Next we have Mimighoul Room, normal trap card. Special summon one Mimighoul monster from your hand or deck to your field, or in face down defense position to your opponent's field. Then you can change one face up monster on the field to face down defense position. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target any number of Mimighoul cards you control, return them to the hand. You can only use one Mimighoul Room effect once per turn, and only once that turn. So this seems really strong. You are able to special summon a Mimighoul monster from hand or deck, which is nice. So it's not like if you draw the card, it's stuck or something if you're playing like a one of, and you can also give it to your opponent in face down defense position, and then you can change a face up monster on the field to face down defense position. So this seems cool because, like, let's say you trigger dragon, wipe their field, you can then put it face down again, which seems really solid. You also get the option to summon master that can search you more resources. Now you have your flip effect live. You can't set the cards on your opponent's turn; they have to be on your turn, because they're not quick effects. Because that'd be really crazy if you could do that. But you could also give your opponent the face down monster, change another monster face up on the field to face down defense, and that could be good just for interrupting your opponent. We've seen how good Karma Cannon is as a non-targeting flip face down. This can also just flip their starters and other cards face down, potentially interrupting their plays. And you can also banish this from your grave, getting your Mimighoul cards back to your hand, so that way you can set them to your opponent's field again. So it seems like a really strong card. So I'm really liking this a lot. Now, in terms of things that we've seen kind of played with this, the 2 I've seen talked about the most is Kashtira, because you can actually trigger Kashtira monster effects on turn 0. So you can give this to your opponent, flip their card face up, and it's their card. So let's say you give them Archfiend, you can make them send a card from their hand to the field to the grave. You can then draw a card, and you can also trigger Kashtira Unicorn to rip their extra deck, which seems really strong. I think that's really good because, one, the extra deck has become extremely tight with the Fiendsmith package. Most people are playing 1-ofs of everything. There's no 2-ofs. So you can potentially rip key cards, getting rid of, the Link 1. You can get rid of, some of the cards used for the Snake Eye decks or the Yubel decks, or different cards, kind of really limiting what they can do, which seems really good. You can also pair this with talents, kind of similar to the Gen and Ken combos we saw, where you give your opponent's monsters, you trigger them, and then that allows you to talents rip your opponent's hands. Like if you give them Archfiend, you can draw a card, they lose a card, potentially hurting their plays. They control a card, so they can't activate cards like Imperm or certain board breakers like Lightning Storm that need to have a clear field. They can't use Gamma, even though most people aren't playing Gamma because it's a 1-of. So you can do a lot of damage with some really interesting setups that we have seen. So I think that's really cool that you can combine this with Kashtira cards. You can also combine this with Purrely cards. So Purrely has, I think, some interesting interactions with this because of Beauty. If you have Beauty on the field, you get an effect negation. And then if you set a quick play spell, you can also activate that quick play spell, attach it to the Purrely. And then when it's attached, you can then flip Dragon or any of the other cards face up, kind of triggering their board wipe effects as well. So that could be an interesting engine in Purrely as well as at their level 1, so they can work well with making Exceed plays with the regular Purrely monsters. When they come back to your field, you can potentially use those to make Link 1 plays or Exceed rank 1 plays as well. So I think that's pretty cool. So I think we have some really interesting interaction here that we get to mess around with. I think it seems really solid. I don't think we saw any Mimighoul decks make it super far into the national tournaments. I think there's some that made it day 2, and I think a couple made it top cut. Don't remember off the top of my head, but we have some kind of working room to go off of. So really excited to see what you guys think. And everyone, that is it for the Mimighoul archetype. I think it seems really solid. There's a lot to really work with here. I don't think the cards are necessarily good enough on their own because they're a little too slow, even though they can still do a lot. I think unfortunately a board wipe on the opponent's turn probably isn't enough for some of these decks. But I think when you pair this with other engines like Kashtira or Purrely or different ones that you guys might tell me about in the comments, that I'd love to hear about what you guys are messing with. I think this could become good, and then with new support, it might get even faster. But I do think this is a really solid start. Let me know what you guys think. Are you excited to use these cards? It's always fun when we get TCG exclusives because we actually get to play with them first and don't have to just go off of what the OCG does. So I think that's really awesome, and I look forward to hearing what you guys think. Everyone, I'll see you in the next one. Hey everyone, this is Editing Max. If you're enjoying the content and you want to support the channel, you can check out the TCG affiliate link in the description below. It supports the channel and costs you nothing, and you'll just be doing the same thing you normally do when you buy cards from TCG Player. If you're new to buying cards from TCG Player, check out my website. I have a section on it that helps out new people, kind of explaining some of the aspects of TCG Player, so that way you can get the most out of your money and you don't fall into some of these weird things that some people do to push up the price of cards. If you want to become a patron on the channel, check out my Patreon. It's another way you can help support the channel. We have different perks you can check out, like a lot of archetype proxies you see on the screen. Every week, I put a new one out that everyone on the channel can vote on YouTube, and then these go to Patreon for you to print out. You can also join for early access. Some videos will be 1 day early access, others that are in a longer series could be weeks out in advance, and you can get the entire thing at once, while everyone on YouTube has to wait week by week for all the videos to come out. You can also join for an exclusive Yu-Gi-Oh! Reaction series where I watch through the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. We have discussions in the comments and watch through it together as well. Plus, there are other perks coming out in the future. Everyone, thanks again for watching the content.